One middle-aged guy tried to work one thing out. One middle-aged guy tried to work one thing out. Hey folks, Dave here, and I want to welcome you to, well, if you heard the theme song, you probably already know, one middle-aged guy trying to work it all out. Sadly, Chris couldn't be with me today, so this episode will be half as insightful, half as informative, half as fun, twice as depressing if you want to take it from a different angle. Of course, I'm just kidding. No, I think we could have a little fun here talking about the subject that you probably saw on your podcast app. I want to talk a little bit about Deadpool and Wolverine, the new movie from Marvel Studios. This is an interesting film. Let me just give you just a tiny bit of background. Earlier in the year, when we were looking at, my wife and I, what's coming out this year, and I saw, oh, this is coming out. I've been watching it for some time, knowing it was, coming out. There was lots of announcements about, oh, Hugh Jackman's coming back to Wolverine, and he's going to be teaming up with Deadpool, and it's going to be getting the Fox mutants into the broader Marvel universe and all that. And I said, I'm not, I'm a little burned out on the Marvel and the phases and the TV shows, but Deadpool, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman's Logan will get my rear in a theater seat, and it will do it on opening night, or as close to it as I can manage. And I will not spoil myself, because I'm really interested in where this is going to go, because it talks about, sort of the coming together of the Fox and the Disney universes. And this is really true. I mean, there has been Fox properties injected into Disney shows, such as, we saw the Beast show up at one point in a film. We saw a version of Reed Richards, a version of Professor X. So there a Black Bolt also. So there have been little tidbits of that trickling in, but this is the first production that is focusing on a Fox property. And really, it's not focusing on a Fox property. It's focusing on two Fox properties. You might say the Fox properties that are the hot ones right now, which is Deadpool and Wolverine. So I did get an opportunity to see it. I did not get to see it opening night. The fates conspired against me, and I did not get to see it on that Thursday, which is so cool when everyone goes to the theaters on a Thursday. So I had to see it on, a Friday night like a normal human, the way opening nights used to be, and it wasn't bad at all. And I went in with very high expectations. I think I let you guys know that, hey, I said, this is the one movie this year I'm looking forward to seeing in the theater, and I kept myself spoiler free. So that's actually something I do want to address right now, and that is, I want to keep you all as spoiler-free as possible. So here's my commitment as I talk about this and give you a little brief review and my thoughts on the film. I'm only going to say things that you have seen in the trailers. So if you've seen the trailers, I'll talk about those things. And I will also talk about things that happened in prior movies that have some, implications on this film. So that would include prior Deadpool movies, prior Fox movies, and prior Marvel movies and TV shows, because it all does get, mixed up in here. And they're baking this crazy cake with all these new universes. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So I'm going to make some assumptions there. So if your goal is 100% no spoilers, staying away from everything, then I would suggest you pause this podcast, go see Deadpool and Wolverine, then come back and take a listen. But if you're comfortable with being spoiled learning no more than what you saw in those trailers and TV spots and what you've already learned from, the Fox and MCU universes, well, then come along with me. So let me say this. I am viewing this film as really from kind of three different points of view, because I think it's an unusual film, certainly an extremely hyped film. It's a buddy picture in a way, and it's a colliding of truly two different universes or properties, and I think it needs to be viewed from very specific ways, right? So I want to view it one way as a Deadpool film. There have been two prior Deadpool films that I enjoyed very much and that I saw at the theater, and that includes the Once Upon a Deadpool PG-13 related charity Christmas movie where they did that PG-13 cut that was actually pretty awesome. I saw those all in the theaters. I liked them and I enjoyed them. So I'm going to view it as a Deadpool movie first, and I'm going to say this. This is probably my least favorite Deadpool movie. Now, it has many of the markings, the anchors that you would expect inside of a Deadpool film: filthy jokes, excessive violence. Disney had not told them to tamper that down, although there is a little bit of a joke about that, a joke that does kind of work. But the truth is that it's as vulgar, maybe even a little tiny bit more so under the Marvel heading than it was under Fox. The problem is that the way it feels to me, the way the writing feels to me, is they're throwing every joke they can conceive of against the wall and seeing what sticks. Some do stick. Some do not. Those that do stick, you do have to wonder, does it really make sense? And I'll point back to one of those that's in the trailer in a little bit, but I won't go there now. But as a Deadpool movie, particularly compared to my favorite, which was number 2, which had him against a really interesting foil in Future Cable. I like their interaction. I like that the journey that they took together and the bringing in of those X-Men properties, which they were allowed to use, those constraints that they were under Fox. I think it made for a funnier movie, and I think it made for a tighter film with better paced and with less just sort of gratuitous fighting scenes, and you get a lot of those. So that's one thing. As a Deadpool movie, it does its Deadpool thing, but I don't think it quite lives up to the past two. Now, you may say, okay, well, Dave, sure, it was as a Deadpool movie, but it wasn't just a Deadpool movie. You are right. You are right. You would say, Dave, sir, please look at the full title of the film. And I would say, well, let me get my readers on because I don't have the best vision. And then you'd slap the readers out of my face. And you'd say, sir, I will tell you this right now. The name of this film in full is Deadpool and Wolverine. Well, you'd be right. I would also be crying because when you slap me, it hurts. But I get the point, right? So I also need to look at this movie through the lens of a Wolverine film. Now, there are, or when I say Wolverine film, I will say this, comparing this or in the lens of Wolverine and Wolverine featuring films, right? So, that goes X-Men 1, X2, the X-Men 3, which he was not in too much. It's a pretty rotten film. And then you get Days of Future Past, and then there's some other stuff that's not that great. And then you get Logan. So there's a whole cadre. Of course, there's also the Wolverine, which is... not that great of a movie, which does feature a version of Deadpool in it. That's anyway. But there is this whole Wolverine, right? Lineage of him in film where you get to know him and there's some consistency. There's ups and downs, but there's a pretty consistent Wolverine. People have looked at Hugh Jackman and said, hey, for the most part, I like this guy's Wolverine. I like the way he plays it. Tough exterior, but he's got a heart deep down there sometimes, just buried under some antimanium and some claws. And so, I did enjoy a lot of those films, particularly X2, particularly Days of Future Past, and particularly Logan. Logan is in my top 5 greatest comic book films of all time. In fact, it's up there with The Dark Knight and Man of Steel. That's truly how much I think of it. And what's interesting enough is that you do get sort of a different version of Logan in Days of Future Past. You get a younger version where he's not yet connected to the X world. And then in Logan, you get an older version where all of his connections to the X world, for the most part, have been severed, and he's just trying to survive. And it's... so we've had this, right? We've had this sort of like different types of Logans, different personalities, but we all see Hugh Jackman's Logan inside there. This Wolverine that we get is a little bit different. It's a lot different. And I think that if you are seeing this movie for your beloved Hugh Jackman portrayal of Logan, who also happens to be called Wolverine, you might be a little disappointed because he's not the same. They tell you that right up in the trailers, right? This is not spoiler information. He's not the same. And he may not be the Logan that you like. You might have some moments here and there, but for the most part, you're just missing that Hugh Jackman rough and tumble, but yet somehow gracious magic that he brought to the other X-Men films. So I would say as a Wolverine movie, definitely not at the top of my list. It's going... Well, from a technical standpoint, it's far better than anything like, say, the Wolverine or either an X1. But it's kind of just, truthfully, it's hard to compare because we are dealing with a different Wolverine. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm going to wrap all this up in just a second. The next way I'm going to look at it, and really truly the final way I'm going to look at it, is an MCU movie, a Marvel movie, because that's truly what this is. This is the bringing together of Fox into the MCU in a big way, taking 2 major MCU characters and putting them into the context of the Marvel Universe using the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, that should not be a surprise to anyone who's been following Marvel at all, as a way to, or who did not watch the end of Deadpool 2, because there's some stuff there that leads you to believe he could get into a little trouble with the TVA there. So that's what that TVA is, what brings the Fox world, Deadpool and Wolverine in the MCU world, and starts to tie this whole multiverse thing together. Now, here's where it's kind of interesting, and I think disappointing, maybe the most disappointing, is that there is this maybe, and this is just for me, this expectation that there was going to be some crafting of the universes, a blending of the universes, that was going to be the catalyst for that was going to be inside this film in some way. And unless I'm just really, really stupid and I missed it, which is entirely possible because I'm really stupid. I'm not really. I recently took a test and was able to roll back one of those relays. Very proud of that. But I may have missed something, but the truth is it looks like it told a pretty straight story. It had an ending, but it didn't really move the needle on the multiverse. Ant-Man, Quantumanium had a similar, I think, problem. I'm not really sure where this is all going, and maybe it all ties together in Secret Wars, but I was just expecting something a little bit bigger to happen to the broad MCU from this story, from what happened to it. And when you realize why they're there and why they're doing it, it's like a lot of ideas, an inch deep and a mile wide. Now, there's some good stuff to that. And I'm going to get to that good stuff in just one second. But I do just want to address this, that, most of what we've seen from Wolverine from the MCU has been, pretty PG-13, with an occasional F word dropped by Logan. I think with that, you're allowed one F word per PG-13 related movie. I think he got a few of those in some of these films. This is a Logan who's got a potty mouth. And I think that that the Deadpool kind of stretches that his sort of grossness, and he comes up with newer and grosser ways to say things. So if you were kind of sort of on the border on Deadpool because of that, this may make you give pause, because I truly was not expecting Disney to like rein it back too much. I thought maybe a little, but I was really expecting more, Deadpool 2 level vulgarity, if you will. But I think they kind of went past that, and I think they made jokes about how they were going past that as they were going past it. So it's very meta, and there was some really clever stuff in there, but it just didn't all cohese. I did make a mention about a joke from a trailer that is funny in the trailer, but when you see it in the movie, you'll be like, don't quite understand this. And that is the big giant husk of Ant-Man opens up, and it reveals itself as some kind of base, and you see the skull of Ant-Man, and Deadpool does say, well, Paul Rudd finally aged. And it's a funny line, especially in the trailer, but it works in the context of this broader movie and the story they're going to try to tell. It even with the fourth wall breaking, it makes not a lick of sense. And it was funny that I have seen that joke in trailers in theaters with people, and they laugh. And in the theater that was laughing at pretty much everything, that I watched the whole movie, and they didn't laugh at that joke, because it's like, did that joke fit? I'm just saying, that's more of my sticking jokes against the wall to see what fits. So I think that there's some pacing issues in the film, a lot of action that goes on a long time, right? Two guys fighting each other that cannot be killed. I mean, you can really take that too far. And I think that they did, and the pacing for the film suffered. It was a simple, A to B road trip, meeting some folks along the way that really interspersed with long and truly, fights where the outcomes were predetermined, stakeless fights, because, neither of these fellows with their healing factors can be killed. So I will say one last thing about this, because there is a very big positive, and I would not end this without mentioning something that is very enjoyable about the film, and that is the cameos. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the cameos are, but everybody knows that there's supposed to be a lot of stuff that shows up, right? Think about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. When that came out, there were so many rumors, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, and it was a relatively small number, and folks were excited about Krasinski being Reed Richards for about 8 seconds, but this goes way, way beyond that and gives you some really cool, fun cameos. And some of them are beyond just cameos. They are actually, a part of the story. And that was very well done, very brilliant, and definitely my favorite part of the film. So, trying to break this down, I would say this. As a Deadpool movie, I see what it's going for. It's not my favorite, and I wish that it had some better comedy writing and a better plot to drive this through. As a Wolverine movie, the version of Wolverine we get is not the one that many love from Hugh Jackman. And I think that that's going to bother some fans. They're like, oh man, we loved our Logan. We loved his resolution with X-23 and how that was all handled. And this new Logan Wolverine, he just doesn't not quite the same. And he's also got a potty mouth. And as far as just an overall movie goes, if you're really invested in the MCU, watch it. You're not going to get the answers, the holy grail of what's going to happen with the multiverse, going forward. Secret Wars will not be unlocked in this film for you, but you'll see some really cool cameos that are some are more than cameos. They're like guest stars, and you're so happy they're along on the ride with you, and those are the most enjoying part of the film. Before I go, I do want to make a comparison between this, and I've heard others make this comparison, so it's not original, but between this film Deadpool and Wolverine, and a film that came out, I believe it was last year, The Flash, and about how both were taking an approach that was going to address the multiverse inside their perspective universes, comic universes, and continuities. And I think that comparing those two, it's really interesting. They're different movies, but you kind of see what they're both, kind of trying to do, surprises here and there. Let me just say this. The highs in The Flash are higher, just barely, than the highs in Deadpool and Wolverine. And I will give that to the outstanding return of Michael Keaton as Batman. Such a high point. And when you look at that on the other side, you get the return of Wolverine, of Logan as Wolverine, and he doesn't feel like the same Wolverine. That's a bit of a letdown. So I'm saying the highs are higher, very slightly, in The Flash. The lows are far, far lower in The Flash. There's some absolute garbage in that film. Effects stuff that's not finished. A Batman with a saggy diaper that leaks that does not look like he wants to be there. And just some other silly stuff. So I look at these two films, and they both are trying to accomplish something inside their respective universe, whether it be resets or combinations, bringing together, both trying to do something big. And it's a fair comparison. If you made me watch them today again, I would say that they're about dead even in my mind. And I dislike things about The Flash very, very much, but I also like all the stuff with Michael Keaton and all the stuff with Zod and all the stuff with Supergirl. So that kind of, even a little bit of the stuff with The Flash. Whereas the stuff that I love mostly in Deadpool and Wolverine has all to do with everybody but Deadpool and Wolverine. I also do think that the Flash movie did try to make some effort to affect the broader DC continuity multi-timeline. I don't know how effective it was with it. I think it took a shot and it wasn't that great. But whereas I don't see that sort of ambition from Deadpool, I think it was just really more about getting Wolverine together with Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool and just seeing what kind of mayhem they can create. Not a bad movie. If you're a big fan of Deadpool, go see it. If you've got reservations on other points, including the extremely foul and vulgar language, you might want to read a few more reviews and maybe save it for streaming when you can make your choice in real time. But that's it. That's where I'm at. Most anticipated film of the year. Glad I saw it. The cameos save the day, and when you see them, they will save the day. Stay for the after credit sequence, although it's not great. It is good, and you should see it, and it will make you laugh, if nothing else. And maybe that's sort of the moral of the story of this new Deadpool film. It will make you laugh, if nothing else. So there we go, folks. I hope you take this fresh, balanced, nuanced view of a very popular film. It's getting very high ratings. I just wanted to bring something, just a little bit out of left field in my own personal take that may, just go off the orthodoxy a little bit. Interestingly enough, that was our first title for the podcast. Two middle-aged guys trying to bring fresh, balanced, nuanced views that are a little bit different than the orthodoxy, trying to work it all out. But that all wouldn't fit in the Spotify box, so we had to edit it down and got what we got. So anyways, thank you for listening. Check us out on our Facebook page, Two Middle-Aged Guys Trying to Work It All Out. Go to our webpage, 2, the numeral 2, middleagedguys.com. We are on YouTube. We are on all of your podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, ones I don't know of, ones I just made up. They're already there. Check it out. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.